6 years ago, Ellis Hammond's entire mission changed. He was a full-time college pastor with vision and passion, but broke. Now a full-time real estate entrepreneur, Ellis is the founder of Kingdom Real Estate Investors, the #1 community for faith-driven leaders impacting the world through real estate investing. If you're a kingdom-minded real estate investor or entrepreneur seeking to advance God's kingdom outside the church walls, welcome to the Kingdom REI podcast, where Ellis interviews Christian entrepreneurs and investors focused on advancing God's kingdom through real estate investing. Enjoy the show.
Hey, welcome everyone to the Kingdom Real Estate Investors podcast show. We exist to really magnify the work of kingdom leaders, kingdom entrepreneurs in the space of real estate, and just hear what exciting stuff that they're working on to inspire you and help you in your business as well. And got a great guest on the show today. You're going to like this guy a lot. He actually is a really interesting story. I'm going to introduce him here in a little bit, but former top Pentagon Air Force meteorologist. What do you need? I'm so curious about that story, by the way. So we'll get into that. But first, Cameron, man, welcome. How are we?
Hello, my friend. We are doing good down here in Dallas, trying to survive these 105 to 110 degree days with the humidity. So if you got any resolutions for me there, I'd appreciate it. Otherwise,
is that like due to global warming, or is that like, is it always that hot in Texas? Like, that just seems absurd.
I think it's because the real estate market's on fire down there. And it's
everything is just hot, man.
Everything's just hot.
Fast as money's moving in here, it's just heating everything up. You know, I'll take it. That AC bill, though, ain't no joke in the summer.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Golly, that is insane. What are you guys doing? It's that hot? Do you stay inside? Do you hit the lake or what?
Well, I was at the lake all this last weekend with some friends, but the water is pretty lukewarm, so it's not that refreshing to jump into. But yeah, inside and shade's your best friend, man.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Guys, I played golf with Cameron last time I was in Dallas. If you're in, by the way, Cameron's a great person to hang out with, but like if you want to feel good about yourself on the golf course, do not go play with Cameron. Like this guy is legit. Okay?
It's my hidden hobby, bro. How am I supposed to impress big money on the golf course if I can't swing straight, dude?
I mean, this guy is like one of the best golfers you'll ever play with.
I have an anecdote for you guys. So your listeners will enjoy this too. So when I was in my meteorology days, my first duty assignment, Scott Air Force Base, and I made it a point to set up the golf team for the unit. And the only reason I did that was to get out of shift work, because when you're on the golf team, you got to show up to the golf events, and that doesn't happen at 3 a.m. So I was able to work day shift then, but the guys I put on my team, there was a dude in my flight, and a flight is like a platoon in the Air Force, right? So we had like 60 people in our flight. This guy, Eric Huber, might listen to the podcast, might not. Shout out to Eric. He was on University of Cincinnati, their golf team. And the guy's giant. He's like 6'5", just a hunk of muscle, just like a big dude. I have never seen someone hit a golf ball that far and straight. And he's like, oh yeah, I played college golf, and all the other team, we would just steamroll all the other teams. And it was great because I sucked at it. I was so bad.
Yeah, Cameron would be great. Like if you're playing best ball, like that's
exactly. All the tournament was best ball.
Play with Cameron, right? But like besides that, we were not playing best ball that day. So,
hey man, you got game 2, Ellis. You got to give yourself some credit. You're a great little golfer, man. And I got to get up there with you and play all these wonderful courses on the bay with you, man. I'm jealous.
Yeah. No, I don't think I slowed you down, but I definitely didn't have your score. So guys, but enough about that. I'm really excited to introduce Kevin Brenner here to you all. You may know him from the ADPI, the active duty passive investor. Is that what PI stands for?
Active duty passive income. Mm-hmm.
Active duty passive income podcast show. Guys, probably one of the largest, if not the largest, military real estate investing community on the planet. Love what these guys are doing there, and Kevin's a huge influence there. And so but like I said, he also was a meteorologist. I'm excited to hear that story, but a very savvy real estate investor putting together ADPI's first a reggae fund, which we're going to hear more about today. And I'm really eager to learn about that, especially if you're an influencer or you lead a community, or maybe you're just part of a bigger community and you have access to folks. You know, is the fund a good idea? We're going to talk about that today as well. So let me just pray for us, guys, and then we'll jump in. Father in heaven, thank you for this wonderful day. Thank you for your grace upon us, your mercy upon us, God, that you woke us up this morning with new mercies. And I pray that even this podcast show would be one of those mercies, that you would give ideas, you would give creativity to entrepreneurs, to real estate investors listening, to spur them on to greater creativity. God, they may make your name greater, may help others. And pray that in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
So, Kevin, like, give us a little context, man. Like, this is the Kingdom REI show, so don't give us the same stuff you give everybody else. Like, I do want to hear about the meteorologist thing, but give us a little backstory, kind of where you're coming in, man. Who are you?
Yeah. So
behind the mic.
Yes. I started out military, and I was Air Force officer. And to keep the long story short there, I went to University of Miami in Florida, and I did ROTC, and I had everything filled out to be a special operator and go down that. I trained for 2 years. I was in like really, really good shape and all of those things. And there was a career field called Special Operations Weather, and I was going to be the officer of that group. And they were the guys that would go with the SEALs and with the Rangers and all that stuff. And they would literally do their weather, their specialized weather before their missions. It's like all the weather to go in and do the Osama bin Laden raid and all that stuff. There were Saudis involved in that. Long story short, the Air Force pivoted away from that career field and said, we're not accepting these people anymore. We're not doing that anymore. Why don't you just be a conventional weather officer? And I was like really kind of upset because I trained 2.5 years of my life, working out 3 times a day. Wow. But that's okay, trials and tribulations. So I became.
You look good though, man. You're fit though. There's
looking good.
Silver
looking
lining.
Good. Silver lining. Looking good. Point is, I became a traditional weather officer, and fast forward 9 years, I ended up getting out of the military. And the only reason I was able to separate the military and land on my feet financially was because of real estate. But the first 5 years of that military career, I had no clue, man. I was spending money as fast as I get it. I was deploying overseas. And when you deploy overseas in the military, you go into, I was in central Iraq, combat pay, getting mortared, all of that stuff, but you get extra pay. It's tax-free pay. So I was getting a bunch of money, came back buying motorcycles, cars, all the stuff that, you're not supposed to do. But I didn't know. Kind of the epiphany moment for me was that I was playing volleyball with a friend of mine in Savannah, Georgia. I remember it like it was yesterday. I truly do. It was a Friday afternoon. It was in April of 2018. And we played on a volleyball team and beach volleyball, kind of just having fun. And we were practicing. And after a match, we sit down in the cooler. He tosses me a beer. We're sitting there talking. And he's like, I just closed on my 7th house. And I was like, that's impossible, because at the time I'm a captain and you're a first lieutenant. So that's one rank above. I make more money than you. Like that, right. You can't. And I have rent and a car payment. Like there's no way you can afford 7 homes. And he told me about good debt. And he told me about how the tenants are paying the mortgages and all of that, and how he's cash flowing and he's making money on these homes. And finally he threw me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I read it in 48 hours. I came back, sat down with his agent, who was a West Point graduate, sat down with his mortgage broker, who was a West Point graduate, sat down with his insurance agent, all at a bar, asked all the questions, and just got hooked. And that was, 4-ish years ago at this point. And from there, I just did what we teach at ADPI right now, and that's learn, network, take action. So I bought every book on real estate. I read, listened to every podcast, found bigger pockets, did all of the things that I'm sure your listeners are familiar with, closed on a quadplex, turned that around. 6 months later, closed on another quadplex, found ADPI, and became an influencer in that space, and eventually an educator, took over the podcast. And now we have ADPI Capital. And when I found ADPI, there was maybe 1,300 members in the group. I think we're up to 57,000 members, all personally vetted by our amazing moderation team we have like 6 full-time moderators who are really pretty much Facebook stalking people to make sure that they're in the military, or that they were in the military. Yeah, which is what you have to do to protect your audience. And they do.
Hey, real quick, what does it mean that you have 57,000 members? How do you qualify a member? Curious is
in our Facebook group. Yeah. So what we do in order to qualify to be a member of Active Duty Passive Income, and right now we have like a 2,300 member waiting list. But you have to be military affiliate in some way, whether that's active duty, a veteran in the reserves, guard, a spouse, a military family, someone in your family's in the military. And you have to be able to qualify that way. And then you just have to be willing to learn. And the biggest thing is you can't solicit inside the group. We protect our group very, very well.
So it's
that.
A Facebook group. There's no paid part to be a part of that, but you have other stuff inside that. I mean, there's other programs and stuff.
Sure. We have education programs. That's one of my roles. I'm the director of single family education. So everything from wholesaling to short-term rentals to BRRRRs to long-term, up to 4 units. I teach that. We have a mastermind and all of that's, pay to play, but and then there's a multifamily academy and stuff as well. But the main Facebook group is where a lot of the value is added, and it's incredible to see it grow. It really is.
That's cool, man. Wow. You think Facebook group's still the way to go? Like where King REI is at today? Like, would you say start a Facebook group to continue to grow?
I mean, so we have this battle internally at ADPI ownership all the time, like, because when you use someone else's platform, you're at their beck and call, right? Like if Facebook says we're changing the rules, you either got to change, you got to either adapt or not.
Right.
So, right now, Facebook, we do like it, but we have some problems. A lot of military members for security purposes don't have Facebook. They have security clearances and they don't like being on social media. That hurts us. So you got to learn, know your audience and everything. It's something that we become comfortable with, and there are a lot of tools. I will tell you though, that a tool I really, really love for coaching is Telegram. So Telegram, the world's largest chat app, has, they have billions of users around the world. Fantastic. We run our entire coaching program off of that. I coach weekly, 30-minute live chat. We have hundreds of members in the group, and you could send out private links and you could verify that they paid to get in and blah, blah, blah. And you go and press go live and sets up a video just like this. I coach, it records, uploads to the cloud. I mean, it's really fantastic.
Wow, that's cool. That's awesome. I do want to get into. Let's get a little tactical. And we'll come back, man, because I want to kind of hear your inspiration for a lot of this. But you guys are launching something pretty big right now, a reggae fund. Explain what that is, and then for our audience maybe unfamiliar with kind of reggae versus 506B, like just overview, and then I want to kind of ask you a couple questions about that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways, and I'll try to keep it, in the military, we call it Barney style, just the top level, that top part of the glacier, so that you guys, I don't bore anyone to death listening to this. But when you are raising capital and when you're structuring a company to raise capital, primarily to sell securities, where a security is effectively just like a stock on the public stock exchange. A security is something I'm going to Ellis and say, Ellis, if you give me money, I can give you a return on your money. And that is a security. I'm selling that to you. I'm promising you a return that you, Ellis, cannot control, right? So when you do that, the SEC, or Securities and Exchange Commission, regulates how you can structure that company and how you can, quote unquote, identify that security and sell that security. And then there's other regulatory bodies like FINRA and SIPC who regulate the sales practices of selling a security. But just starting with the SEC, for a lot of your listeners, they may be familiar, like you touched on, the most common way to raise capital for a multifamily project, say, is a syndication, right? And a syndicate is just a large group of people coming together, contributing money to go after a project. And there's securities in there. And you file an exemption under Regulation D. And what that does is it exempts you from a lot of the rules. So the SEC has hundreds and hundreds of rules. Think of like a big, thick manual of all the rules that if you're selling a security, if you're a public company selling a security, you got it. I mean, they have high paid attorneys and compliance officers that are part of their company, and they're following all the rules to a T, right? But for a syndicator who's doing a one-off project, there's a Regulation D exemption, which exempts you from a lot of these rules and regulations because you're just doing it for one project. You're not doing it for a New York Stock Exchange listed company, right? So that's kind of the baseline. And Regulation A is another exemption that used to be not so great, but in 2015, they changed the rules. The SEC said, hey, we're going to change the rules here. And the reason the rules changed is because the tech industry demanded that there was a better way to raise capital for venture capital purposes for setting up tech companies. That's really where it started. Now, what we're doing is we're applying the Reg A to real estate. So the Reg A is in your Reg D. Like I said, your most common Reg D is using Rule 506B or 506C. And just a brief overview, your 506B, you can raise money from up to 35 non-accredited investors. Everyone else has to be accredited, but you have to have a pre-existing and substantive relationship with these people. It can't be like people that you wave on the street and say hi. You can't send a big Facebook ad out to people or email blast out to unsolicited people. It doesn't work like that. So you can't market it freely, right? On your 506C, on the other side, it's great because you could market freely to anyone you want, but everyone has to be accredited. So they have to have $1 million net worth or make $300,000 a year if they're married. So that's kind of the most common ways to get it done. On a Reg A, you can raise from unlimited amount of people. Because remember, on a Reg D, 506B and C, you're limited to 99 investors. So per project, typically, if you're using a 3C1. But on a Reg A, you can raise from unlimited investors. They can be unaccredited. Minimum investments can start as low as $10 per share. And you can apply that capital and pretty much put it in a fund, which is what we're doing. So if you picture, the center of the poker table, everyone's got their chips. We push all of our chips to the center of the table. We have this pot of money now, and the projects are coming in, and we're choosing to invest in those projects. So a Reg A is ideal for people who have communities built already or who are part of communities who want to have the money ready to go, because that makes you as a buyer of a real estate project much more favorable to get that contract. Because
so a couple questions. Is the goal to fund deals within ADPI? Are you guys going out and finding other operators? Kind of what's your plan there?
That's the great part about active duty passive income, right? So I touched on it earlier. We have two academies. We have a single family academy, which I teach. And then folks like Tim Kelly and Adam Labar, who I know, they do the multifamily academy. Well, we have just finished multifamily academy cohort class 2202. We do one class a quarter. It's 8 weeks long. And there's about 20 people in each class, and they're finding deals constantly. So we're in a position now where we have about, over the whole multifamily academy, maybe 50, 60 graduates, and they're constantly finding deals, and they're forming teams amongst each other or outside people or whatever. And they're pumping our deal flow. And then we're in a position now where we're connecting the standard 57,000 member community that's growing at 7,000 members a month. We're connecting those people with opportunities from that small segment of class graduates who we personally taught how to underwrite, find, operate, and syndicate real estate deals. We're flowing that money to them. And part of our charter says that we have to own 51%. ADPI Capital has to own 51% of every real estate deal that we invest in. That's part of being in a Reg A. But because those GP teams know, like, and trust us already, and they know that they can go into a deal and potentially not have to raise a nickel, they're all about it.
Yeah.
Because they can get, it's economies of scale for them. It's speed of implementation for them. So it's really exciting.
Reg A seems so, like, the first guy that I saw really kind of market this was Grant, and he did Reg A, but then I saw him go away from it for a while and, kind of just go after the 250, 500K investor. And I don't know if that was because I thought, he's like, it's not worth the hassle, right, to go after $10 at a time. It just seems like, is the juice really worth the squeeze, right, is my question. Why not just do a 506C fund and go after larger money? Is the conglomerate of $10 at a time, is it really worth it? I guess I just love to know your experience in the Reg A fund versus, just starting a regular 506C fund.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great question. And I would say it depends. So our community, our niche of military real estate investors, obviously you're active duty military, most likely you're not an accredited investor. So that was when we looked at this as a solution, and we're a solutions forward company, I brought this to the team a little over a year ago and said, let me lead this, but effectively, how can we create the best solution? And we looked at the problem, because we had so many people coming to us and saying, Kevin, Tim, Adam, Eric, Markian, I would love to invest with you guys, but I can't because there are all these barriers. I'm not accredited. And even if even if I got into a 506B, there's a $50,000 minimum on these deals. And even if I got into a 506B and I had a pre-existing substantial relationship with an operator, which a lot of people don't, there's still a 25 to 50K buy-in, which I don't have that capital. So there was just a lot of problems. So what we did was we said, okay, how can we create this solution and this bridge, right, that I talked about? So we didn't set it at $10. We set ours at $500 minimum, which is still low. That's a very low barrier to entry to get into these deals. And right now we're in test the waters, which means the SEC is actively, we just turned in another round of paperwork. So unlike a Reg D, you don't actually register with the SEC. You raise your hand and say, hey, I'm exempt. Here's my letter of exemption. I'm good to go. In a Reg A, you are registering with the SEC. So they have to manually review things. It takes a lot of time. So we started, had the first call with our attorney in October of 2021. We're in July of 2022, and we're going through the process right now. So I would say when we first got it started, like in January, when we kind of got serious about it, it was a 6-month setup period. And then, we're waiting for the SEC to do their thing, and they review it. It takes them 3 weeks and they send things back, and then we got to fix it, and it goes on. So the point I'm trying to make is one of the major cons, Ellis, is the time to set up. You can't I would be shocked if you could do a Reg A and use it for one specific project, because it's going to take you 9 months on average to get set up. And no one in their right mind is going to keep a deal under contract with you for 9 months unless they really, really like you, which they might, Ellis. They might really, really like you.
So that money's just blind then, correct?
Totally blind. Yep.
Yeah. And I think how you're talking, it comes down to your network too, and maybe the access to capital you have. Like I was on the phone this morning with a guy. He's a young guy in West Texas, where I'm from. And he's like, man, I've got about $250,000 ready to put to work. He's not accredited, and my fund is 506C. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, I can't take your money, brother.
Yeah.
But he's not my average pool for all investors. But it was just like, I would love to take your money. You're totally sophisticated. You know what you're doing. You know the risk. You're more sophisticated than a lot of credit investors, but yet you're not accredited.
Yeah. And something to consider, guys, and listeners as well, is the SEC is currently reviewing a rule change to the accreditation status. And they are reviewing that rule change, and potentially there are rumors going through the fund community, and I'm sure you guys have heard this before, of not making it $1 million net worth, but making it $10 million net worth. If that rule passes, that is going to completely change the landscape for 506Cs. 506Bs will shoot up, 506Cs will go way down, and Reg As will probably go way up. So that's something to consider. Now, obviously, it's, hasn't happened yet, and it might not, and you never know with these things. The SEC's also been sitting on a rule change to the finder's law on qualifying what a finder is for raising capital for 4 years now. So it's not like these rule changes happen overnight, but rumor mill, so yeah. that could be interesting.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, and is expensive? How expensive is this? I mean, golly, if you're, you got to have an attorney probably look through this, and they're working for you for 9 months. This can't be cheap.
Standard to get a Reg D, 506B or C, you're looking at anywhere between 10 and 15,000, right? You could get it for cheaper, but I would just ballpark it. I've done this before. Reg D, you're in about 10 to 15K in legal fees. For a Reg A, 10X that.
Yeah.
So you're about 100 to 150 grand. We're in this for about 120 right now.
Okay.
But the other cool parts about this is we can raise up to $75 million in 1 year. And again, we have the community, we have the deal flow, and we have the pick of the litter of the best deals from our community of operators who we've trained and have those relationships with. So from that standpoint, it's a great model to scale and, again, provide that solution and say, hey, you're in the community and you want to invest alongside active duty passive income leaders. You got $500, let's go. And a lot of people have that. So, but to kind of double back, Ellis, to your point of, is the juice worth the squeeze? $500, I mean, that's like, you still got to have an investor relations team.
Yeah.
Communications. And I mean, you guys are both capital raisers. and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are, typically the people who invest the smallest amount of money have the most amount of questions.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes. So you have to have your ducks in a row. You have to have your systems in place. Right now in our test the waters phase, I can tell you our average investor across the field is putting in around between $7,000 and $10,000 a piece.
So you're taking money even in your test the water phase right now.
We can't take the money. We can take soft commitments.
Okay.
So we can take pledges pretty much.
Yeah. And so how much have you guys raised up to this point?
So we've been in test the waters for 6 weeks and we have over 2 million pledges. And, they keep coming in because it's coming from the community. So
yeah, at 7 and 10K a pop.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that's average though, because a lot of people will be 500, some people will be 50, some people will be
25. What's so
25.
fascinating about this though, man, is like, this is the future. Like you should also be on my other show, The Future of Real Estate, because I just think about the power of the people. Like, how
That's
much, like, you know what I'm saying? Like the idea that an influencer or a group of influencers or a community like ADPI or KREI can go and compete with big groups. I mean, look at what Cardone has done, for example, right? The ability to, raise all this money on the internet because he's got this massive following and go compete with some of the largest institutions on the planet. It's really, really interesting to think about as social media grows, as there's, and I truly believe like there's going to always be like a dozen really major influencers, like they're, if they want to do, their ability to raise capital and do stuff like this, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And it's, so let me break down another con for folks. Cause I always like to, it's always about pros and cons, right? If you're looking to set up a Reg A, also note that while a Reg A, similar to a Reg D, is the feds supersede the state filings. So like if you're registered with the SEC, you're exempt, right, from a lot of what the state would have to do. But you still have to individually file with each state and get permission from them to raise capital from that state. And there are 4 states right now who make this very difficult: Texas, Florida, Washington, and New Jersey. For some reason, they choose to make it very difficult for capital raisers. And pretty much the reason they do that is because they want you to have a broker dealer on your team. They want you to work with a broker dealer. And many issuers who have Reg A's, they do work with broker dealers, but we're trying not to do that because a broker dealer is a sales team. A broker dealer is someone who raises capital for you, but we spent 5 years building a community of 57,000 faithful real estate members, military real estate investors. So we don't want to pay a broker dealer 1% to 3% of everything for doing nothing, because we have it all. But those states are saying, I don't know about that. You might want to reconsider. So we're going through that. That's another challenge that we're currently facing. But from the LP side of the house, a fund and a Reg A fund is a great way to get into, put your money to work in a very low barrier to entry. And of course, you're also getting the diversification. Because remember, when you're in a fund, it's not like you're in one deal. A Reg D is for one deal. And God forbid that deal goes south, you're out. For a fund, we're, putting $10 million in 4 deals. All 4 of those deals, which are in different markets, different operators, different classes, different assets, all of those would have to go south.
Yeah. No, there's pros and cons. I mean,
sure.
I wouldn't want to put my money with anybody but me, but yeah, there's pros and cons. So yeah, I mean, I get it though, but it does seem Reg D, you really need to have some power behind you in terms of people for that to make sense. Like you got to have some volume for that example, like, just because if you're listening to shows like, oh, it's easier to go raise 10 grand than it is 50 grand. I'm like, to be honest with you, the answer to that is that's actually not true in my opinion. Just because you go create a fund, that's not going to make it easier for you to raise, because you still have to go market that. You still have to build trust the same way, right? And to Kevin's point, typically what I find that people who are less willing to release their funds are people who don't have funds. So I have found it actually harder to raise capital from smaller investors than bigger investors. So just those are a couple points I think worth it. But I think that even as I'm thinking about this, like it's even given me kind of new vision or idea of like what Kingdom REI could be. Like, Because I don't know if you realize this, man. Let's talk about this to go here just for the last little bit we have, but just the kingdom impact that you guys are having. These are people that are serving our country that have sacrificed so much, have given their lives to protect our freedoms and give us freedoms. And, you guys are giving them an opportunity to create financial wealth and financial flexibility in their life, where, their career may not necessarily allow them to be able to do that. And I think that's real kingdom work, man. I don't know if you realize that or if you guys have talked about that. I know there's faith is a big value of y'all's as well over there at ADPI. Mm-hmm. So, I just think, man, like there's a real participation of the kingdom in, building a community that really is serving those who are protecting us or serving us.
Yeah. Yeah. The, our kind of mission statement is to allow those who pretty much those who swore to protect and defend our nation to own more of the land in that nation. Pretty much own more of the land you swore to protect and defend. That's kind of our creed, because before us, and you hit it on the head, we are Active Duty Passive Income. We are the world's largest military real estate investing platform. We're out there, and now we have the solution for folks who are in our community and our military and our veterans and want to be connected in that way. We have that solution. We have that platform and that capability to go and say, hey, yeah, let's do this. Let's put this to work. And it is really awesome. It's a great project to be a part of, but it's great to have these conversations, these one-on-one conversations with investors, to say like, hey, especially now in today's environment, Ellis, and I'm sure you guys are getting calls all the time, like, we're down 8.6% or up to inflation 8.6% based on the consumer price index, where, my stock portfolio has taken a dive. My guy called me the other week. He's like, oh, you're down 13%, but you were up 17% last year. And I was like, don't sugarcoat this, man. Just give it to me straight. But like, that's the environment that we're in. And people are looking for alternative investments that make sense, that are tangible, that you can hold, that hedge inflation. And gosh, I mean, giving folks that outlet, you guys do it wonderfully at Kingdom REI. And I think for military folks, we're just making that availability, that barrierless entry.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. It's amazing. Cameron, what you got, man?
I just like how you're the first person I've ever talked to who's actually done this and is doing this reggae in detail. And I like how you've weighed the pros and cons of Reg D. And kind of like Els was saying, just being a part of a community that serves specifically a niche person, because you wanted to let them in and give them an opportunity to have access to deals I'm sure that you and me and Ellis see come across our desk every day. I am curious though, like how have you been able to do this really well and be in the military really well? And, is there an exit plan? Is there a capstone for you to be done with that life and full in this life?
Yeah. Yeah. So I executed that exit plan in August. I got out of the Air Force, and I was in 9 years, and the only reason I was able to get out was because of the cash flow from my rentals and my short-term rentals, but also from ADPI. And I 100% am eternally grateful for Markion Sitch, Eric Upchurch, Adam Labar, Tim Kelly, Victoria Griggs, for having the faith in me when they called me one day and said, hey, do you want to come work with us? And I said, well, I want to run the podcast. And they gave me the keys, because I'll be straight up with you guys. I've always looked up to Brandon Turner. And ever since I started listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, I noticed that he's not an owner of Bigger Pockets. Never has been, but he is the biggest influencer, and he is a marketer at heart. And when I had the opportunity to interview him on the ADPI podcast, I asked him about that. And he's like, wow, no one has ever actually asked me that question. Because he's a marketer. He said straight up, I'm a marketer. I'm a pro marketer. And that's, so that was kind of my stipulation. And they gave me the keys to the podcast and allowed me to set up our single family program and everything. And that's helped build my network, and everyone knows, listen to this podcast, your network is your net worth. And, you know, I don't market myself as an influencer, but you become one.
To that point, let me ask you, did you come on as a paid salary person? Did you commission based on what you were creating? What'd that look like?
I came on as, let me help you build this.
That's amazing.
And it evolved into, you know, some commission here and there. And
but will you have equity in this fund?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's incredible. Guys, listen to this. Listen to this. This brother stepped up, saw the vision in something, was willing to work for free, and is now going to have equity in a $70 million fund. If you're listening to this and you want to help Kingdom REI go to that, I don't know what that looks like, but I'm going to tell you, I think that's why I named this Kingdom REI and not Ellis REI, because it's bigger than me. I just love that vision, man. I want to continue to find folks who want to see the kingdom impacted. So in some ways, I love that you shared that, because I'm like, this podcast, I think, has given me a new vision of like, man, there's so much more Kingdom REI could be. I think I need new ideas and new people who are hungry and eager to want to go do some of that. I don't know how you would get in touch with me, listen to this, because, but if you can figure out how to get in touch with me and then you have a good idea, I'd love to hear from you. Kevin, this has been awesome. And hey, one last question. Your clock is stuck at 11:43. Is there something special about that, or are you just too cheap to put batteries in there, man? What happened?
that is usually not in the background with the other camera. And it just needs a good winding. I would like to see, like, have this like badass stories, like 11:43. Was when I landed in Iraq. And I parachuted out of my, whatever. No, but none of that happened.
That's awesome. I don't wear watches, so like whenever like I need to go wear a watch, and I go to like in my drawer to find my like the 3 watches I own, like they're always dead, and so like I just turn them to 5 o'clock. I'm like, okay, it works. Man, I really enjoyed this, guys. If you're not following ADPI, that they got a great podcast show. I'm gonna promote that real quick. You had Shaq coming on there here in a couple of weeks. I'm excited to listen to that one. I was on the ADPI show. I have no idea when that was, but you could go check out that as well.
Yeah, that was a wonderful podcast, and you were talking about that was back when you were just setting up Kingdom REI, and we talked about it, and you've grown so much, and your community has grown so much, and there is, for the listeners out there, as a final point, there is so much power in community. And you mentioned it earlier. Don't go into something wanting something in return.
Yeah.
Stop. Like society has trained us to develop transactional relationships, and you need to hard stop that and figure out how you can turn the common transactional relationship between human A and human B into a transformational relationship.
Yeah.
No money is going to change hands, but ideas will change hands. Your network is going to grow. You're going to be so much more powerful of a person. You're going to empower others. And that idea has been cultivating in my head, and it's helped propel me to a life of financial freedom.
Yeah.
Transformational. Make that transformation and stop trying to get a dime out of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, man. Anything else where folks can find you, know what you're up to, even learn more about this fund?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to get in touch with me or anything with ADPI Capital is just head over to adpicapital.com. It's adpicapital.com. You have the full breakdown and everything you need. If you're at the gym right now, or you're walking around, taking the dog for a walk, just shoot a text. Open up your phone, shoot a text. Text ADPI to 33777. That's going to get you all the information that you need for ADPI Capital. And if you want to, email me or anything, have questions, just kevin@adpicapital.com. And of course, if you're in the military community, go to our regular website, Active Duty Passive Income. See if that's something that you're interested in, and join the community. And it's totally free. It's fun.
Yeah, I definitely recommend if you're active duty or former military, incredible community. Go check that out, man. I enjoyed this, Kevin. I'm grateful for you. You inspired me today. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ellis. Thanks for the opportunity.
Guys, if you enjoyed this as much as I did, please take a screenshot and put this on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you do social media. Let us know that you enjoyed this show. Seriously, give us a shout out. Give Kevin a shout out. Continue to support this message. Help us grow to be the largest community for kingdom-minded real estate investors who want to make an impact on this planet for the kingdom of God through real estate. So appreciate all your love and support. We'll see you next week. Cheers.